Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Comedy Luxembourg's finest metal podcast. I'm Jill, your host for today, and again, we have a special day today. Even though we are miles apart, I'm very pleased to have Alex Becerra of the band Nostalgia, Mexican band, metal band, atmospheric black metal band, here with me today. So thanks so much, Alex, for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you for having me.
Most welcome. This is my first, to be fair, in terms of distance, in terms of that amount of distance. But I'm super pleased, and I'm also super stoked to talk about Nostalgia, a band that, obviously Nostalgia is basically you as a solo project, if I may say so. And I discovered Nostalgia with the Echoes from the Moon River, which is almost
very recently.
Very recently. Yeah. And since then I really got hooked on your particular sound that you create, which is, it's obviously way too easy to call it black metal or atmospheric black metal, but it's so much more, and that's why we're here today. So let's start from the beginning, man. I saw that on your discography. Damn, you're busy, right? And you started this project, if I remember, if I saw correctly, in 2020 or maybe a bit earlier. But you keep on releasing non-stop music, which is awesome.
Yes, you would be right. I released the first album on August 2020. And since then, I just haven't stopped. Like you say, I've got a busy schedule with this. About 3 albums a year. I just haven't stopped.
Which is great.
I can't stop.
Don't. If you don't feel like it, I don't mind, to be fair.
I don't feel like it, not now.
Which is good. That's the thing. I think whenever you write music, and no matter what genre of music that you create, if you're on this level and if you feel, there's still so much more to say, just go with it and let it all out. No matter what it is, it will still be something that you came up with, something that you created or refined or whatever. And honestly, 3 albums a year, that's a lot. that's really a lot.
Yeah, on average.
Average for you, maybe. Of course, it's definitely not easier if you do everything on your own. And that's the second part which makes this band so interesting to me personally, because if you're in the realm of, let's say, black metal music or everything that is super underground, super... let's just call it different. Okay. It's pretty regular to have one person that basically is not necessarily in charge, but has that vision and feels more comfortable in creating most of it themselves, and maybe asking obviously for guests and stuff to be on the record, which you obviously did on several occasions. But is it true that have you been in a band before, or is Nostalgia your first thing? Because I find it super impressive to have this amount of output and just seem so casual about it. It's like a regular thing for you, which is crazy, to be fair.
Yes, it is. It's all about routine and discipline. But answering your question, I was actually in a band a long time ago. I was in middle school and high school. Maybe I was 15 or 16 years old. And it was a thrash metal band, a local thrash metal band.
Okay.
Not successful at all. We didn't release anything. We probably played a few gigs, but that was about it. And since then I realized I just felt much more comfortable doing all by myself. So that was the lesson I got from that. That I just had much more freedom, and I could manage my time better, and I could manage my ideas better. And since then, I just realized that this is what I wanted to do. I want to do all by myself. And it's taken a long time, right, to learn all of this, to learn how to play the instruments and to learn about engineering and production and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's totally been worth it. This is how I feel the most comfortable.
Yeah, and then again, as I said, when I discovered Echoes from the Moon River, I obviously went back to check upon everything that you did beforehand. So, and it is seriously impressive. To be fair, to have, especially if you're doing everything on your own and feel more comfortable doing it. But it's very impressive, man. I'm probably like like a fanboy here, but I think I am. To be fair.
Thank you. No, it's been a long time, and I better be good at it now, or at least better now.
Yeah.
It would be very disappointing not to notice any improvements over 4 years of making music. So maybe it better be noticeable.
It is true that you have, at least if it's for Nostalgia or any other band, you at least try to improve on some extent. But then again, you have some other examples, which we will not name here today, but there are several, where it will just continue in a straight line, and it will not necessarily improve or change. But I really enjoy the fact that I think Nostalgia, the idea behind it is nothing is written in stone, and there's not one record that seems similar to the other, even though
that's been the idea. Yes.
Yeah. Even though I think I remember talking to a friend of mine whom I showed the latest record now, Faneron, and he was like, "Oh, I heard Duello before, which is also from 2023." And he said like, "Damn, it doesn't sound the same, but it somehow does, which doesn't make sense." So, and it's pretty I would not call it all over the place. But it's not necessarily like your everyday kind of music. I mean, yes, we like metal here in the podcast, but it's so much more than that. And that was the second the question I was following up with is how would you describe then what is your message with Nostalgia? Why this particular genre? Why all these different variations in the music?
Oh, well, I do try and make every album different, mainly because my personal music taste is quite diverse, and I do get bored of listening to the same genres or the same bands.
Yeah.
And even some of my favorite albums, I've only listened to them once, maybe twice, but I don't like that kind of repetition. And I always try and make the music that I like listening to. I listen to my own music all the time, actually. Obviously, right? I have to make the music that I like.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
that means that I won't make the same album twice. Or at least I'm going to try and make something a little bit different, but which, like you've mentioned, sounds similar or has sort of the same language.
Yeah.
So as that it remains as part of as the overall sound that I want to have on this project.
Yeah.
But I do it very intentionally. And actually, for example, like you've mentioned Duello and Faneron, which are very different. But even the albums from 2023 are very different. The Last Path is very different from Duello. Yeah. Duello is very different from Echoes from the Moon River. And Faneron is also very different, and I try to keep it that way.
Keeping it, I mean, fresh is not the right word, but it has to be also different for you. Otherwise, again, you might lose maybe interest or, I mean, but to some extent.
You know what? The point is that obviously I know what I'm doing because I am the one making the music, and I work on every single aspect of the music, right? And I play the instruments, I produce the music, and I spend about 10 hours every day working on it. And imagine that, right? So I know what I'm doing, so that means I know when I'm repeating an idea.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes I'm playing something and for a new record, and I realize, I've done this before, or it just sounds too similar to something I've done before. And I kind of do try to force myself to come up with something different, because I just don't want to be lazy about it.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And it's a bit of a struggle too, because I will never stop sounding like myself, because it's me. It's like my handwriting, the particular language that I used for my compositions. It's me. It's personal.
Yeah. It sounds very organic the way you describe it. It just happens, and even though you try to force yourself into let's maybe change because you see some similarities, but Yeah, as you said.
I do need to find a sort of compromise. Yeah, I need to be okay with the idea that there will be some things which will be similar, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to be too similar. So
Yeah, obviously.
what I do is I try to implement new things into every single record. Maybe a new music concept that I've just learned about. I try to keep myself learning about music all the time, and it's that. But also I work on the mix from scratch. Sometimes it's very similar, but I do try, for example, that the sound of the drums is different. That the guitar distortion might be maybe heavier or maybe more defined, and it just depends on the atmosphere and the color that I want to imbue into every one of these albums.
And then obviously also the mood, I guess, because that's basically the reason why musicians write music is depending on their mood, what you're going through.
You might say so, but interestingly, for example, I wouldn't classify my own music as being depressive. Sometimes it gets labeled as that, as depressive black metal, or even I have done it because it's a useful tag.
It is,
but I don't actually believe. Yeah, it's useful, right? Genres are useful, and I've known plenty of people who have found my project because they're looking for black gaze bands, or they find me in an atmospheric black metal channel on YouTube and whatnot. I know they're useful, but personally, I wouldn't really classify my music as being depressive. And however, before, and this is interesting, but before Duelo, or before The Last Path, actually, so that's about
Wounds, then, I guess.
Yeah, so that's about maybe the first 7 or 8 albums. I wasn't depressed. I'd never been depressed before. And you could say that my music was melancholic or that it was depressive, some people might say, but I wasn't actually feeling depressed. I was feeling at peace. I was feeling focused. Sometimes I was feeling, maybe some days I was feeling a bit down, and that happens. But
I mean, yes,
in general, I have to be concentrated. I have to be able to actually get up every day and work on the music. So if I actually was depressed,
you would not find it really difficult. That much amount of music, I guess.
Yeah, actually, and last year it was a very difficult year for me. Now it was the first time I was actually really depressed, and I don't know how, but I did find the strength to get up every day and work on my music. It was, you could say, my means to cope with depression and to do something about it, to transform it.
Yeah.
But I was more depressed when I did The Last Path, which is not so depressive sounding, so to speak.
I mean, I get you because again, when I discovered Echoes from the Moon River, so obviously I will go back to that record because that's the one that got me hooked into what you do. It was basically labeled as, if you like, yes, Alcest and all those big black gaze stuff that is really mellow and also depressive. I mean, it was labeled as you said, very depressive, but I find it's also, again, way too easy to just put slam a logo on it, and that being said, I mean, it's we had the chat before, right? And I mentioned that for me, Nostalgia feels like very vulnerable music.
Vulnerable, yeah.
I think that's the right term, at least for me.
I think I actually will start advocating for that term. It's not brutal black metal, it's not depressive black metal, it's vulnerable black metal.
And it's poetry and vulnerability mixed into whatever phase you're going through. And I think honestly the step up from Echoes from the Moon River and Phaneron shows it pretty well, because this, again, it's too easy just labeling it as depressive stuff. Yeah, obviously the lyrics and the theme, and also, again, the artworks, which are very, very similar. But then again, I think it's like a romantic way of being vulnerable. Let's just call it that. Because I think that's the terms I go mostly with when I listen to Nostalgia. And it makes total sense. If I feel... I'm obviously, as a listener, you feel something else. You go and look for music that really will impact you at the specific moment. So, but then I think putting on Nostalgia when I'm depressed will not work. It will definitely not work, because it it will, I don't know, it will not necessarily impact me the way it should.
Well, everybody finds a different
True.
kind of solace into what they listen to, because I have heard of some people saying to me that my music has somehow helped them go through dark times, or exactly. And what I think is, well, that's an interesting perspective, because it did help me. In part of my purpose about making music is that some people will feel connected with it. Actually, that's one of my main concerns. I mean, I make the music mainly for myself, but obviously I also appreciate it if people feel connected to it.
That's true, obviously.
In whatever way they see fit, obviously, because not everybody processes these emotions in the same way.
Exactly.
I personally wouldn't classify Moon River as being depressive at all. But if some people do find some sense of melancholy or sadness in it, well, that's okay. I cannot control how people will perceive what I do, and I'm totally okay with that.
That's totally true. And I think also, while we're at it, you started using, let's just call it jazzy elements. You know exactly what I mean.
Yes, I do.
But like this, let's just call it a dark-ish ambient, retro, even film noir, kind of vibe that some songs have on almost every record. There's like one part which is very, very ambient and very, just very, it feels, I wouldn't say misplaced, but that's the term I heard from again that one feller who also listens to a lot of nostalgia stuff. It feels a bit out of place, but the more you listen to the record, the more it makes sense, because it's like this one or two breaks on the record that you just can breathe, and even though it does not sound necessarily like the rest, but like this red line, this red thread that is going through the whole record is still there. How did you come up with this particular idea? I mean, obviously you listen to a lot of diverse music. That's why the jazzy vibes also come in, and all the other elements.
Well, that's precisely it. I wouldn't say that I came up with it. It's just that I am primarily a jazz musician. I play the drums mainly. That's my main instrument.
Okay.
And I've learned a lot about jazz theory and, rhythmically, harmonically, melodically. I also use improvisation as a big part of my creative process. And, well, I just listen to a lot of jazz. And, this all came naturally. It's not that I intentionally said, I'm going to implement a weird jazz break in here, something like that. No, it's just that to my mental ear, as I like to call it, just, like the same way you have a mind's eye, and if you're, for example, a painter, the same way if you're a painter, you imagine the picture first and then you paint it. Well, I like to call it the mind's ear. You kind of just hear the music in your mind, and then you start working on it. Sometimes it just comes up by itself. I don't really have any control over those ideas. Sometimes it just sounds all right. And obviously for people, I would say, who are not so familiar with the language of these genres, let's call it jazz, or I don't know, progressive rock, which I do implement a lot as well. Or not very familiar with the musical language of math rock or jazz fusion.
But you definitely have the patterns there. I mean, it's one hears it. If you're somehow into this area of music, then you will notice the change, the color change and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So for anybody who's not very familiar with that kind of language, which is okay, because I am also non-familiar with a lot of genres and a lot of musical vocabulary, that happens. It might come across as being out of place. But when I'm actually putting the music down into an actual record, if you listen very closely, you will realize that it's very well connected. The key is usually the same. The tempo is usually the same. The phrasing is usually the same. Usually what changes is just the instruments and the timbre. I mean, instead of being really distorted, it's just clean.
Clean and with a lot of reverb or stuff like that.
Exactly, but usually, I mean, musically speaking, it's very well coherent.
Yeah.
At least that's my intention, because
Yeah,
I
I mean-
actually don't like it when it's all over the place, and I try that even my longer compositions don't feel all over the place.
Yeah.
But in short, yeah. In summary, I don't come up with that. It just appears organically in my mind's ear, and sometimes it's right. Sometimes when I imagine it, it just sounds right to me, and when I put it down into the audio station, it's just okay, and I leave it. Sometimes I do discard ideas, and I say, maybe this shouldn't be in here.
But then again,
sometimes I've thought about
Yeah.
it, but then I just leave it, and it sounds okay.
But then again, even if it's a bad idea, it's still not a bad idea. It's still an idea, and who knows what will happen with this idea on another track, or I don't know what. Which is again interesting, because I said it. I think the red line, this red thread that goes through, I think any record of yours. Honestly, to me, I think, especially now with Phaneron, I think is a good example for me. I find it difficult for me to listen to, only one song. Honestly, I think the whole emotive stuff and the whole atmosphere that you evoke with your music is way more enjoyable, and it makes way more sense to listen to the whole album in one stretch.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah,
Because I think that's the way it should be listened. So
it is. I actually do plan my albums as being one single piece of work, which is divided in several parts.
yeah,
And I like it that way, and that's the reason, by the way, that's the reason why I don't release any EPs or I don't do any splits, because I think it compromises the integrity of a piece of work.
yeah,
I like having a full piece of work which should be able to be listened to from start
Yeah.
to finish, and that
Yeah,
it feels
makes-
coherent, part of the same piece.
yeah.
And I am strongly against, how may I call it? You could say this playlist culture, in which
Yeah.
everything is
Yeah, yeah.
dominated by algorithms and streaming
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
platforms and all of that. And sadly, I say sadly, but it's actually, I mean, it's not bad, but I would say ironically, the pieces which people listen to the most from me are the interlude tracks like Amapola on Wounds or Premier Duelo on Duelo, because they're short and because they can be placed into playlists. They go in playlists with
Yeah.
names like Forest Core or songs to listen to while you're reading and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of this playlist culture, it does kind of wind me up, because it's become so lazy, and I do try to be strongly against it and
Yeah.
go back to, well, I wouldn't say go back, because it's still here, but try to find a place in this area in which you actually have to listen to the music mindfully, and you have to pay attention to it. It's not just background noises for you to hear while you're doing something else.
Yeah, I
So
think for
thank you
that
for
is-
mentioning that, because
Yeah.
I do plan my albums that way.
I think it makes way more sense. And to me personally, again, I mean, you said it. If you want to listen to something like just background noise, and then maybe listen to, I don't know, this is definitely not the right music to just leave it in the background. I think it's this not wall of sound. Again, that's a term that came up like a few years back, and now everybody's using it. But
Yeah.
I think it's precision to some extent, like knowing exactly where which instrument is dominant. Let's call it that, and just evoking a different ambience with that, and not necessarily like flooding people's ears with a ton amount of synthesizers and stuff, because that's one part for me which got very annoying over the last few years with a lot of, especially the more modern scene, modern metal music, which is, I'm gonna say it's basically all the same. It sounds all the same, which is pretty annoying to me.
Yes, it is. It is totally true. And again, it's because labels are useful.
Yeah.
I know that it's easier to find new projects if you just look for the name of the genre or the overall mood for this type of music.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, that also leaves out music which tries to be more adventurous or which doesn't really fit into any of these boxes. And I know that's a risk, because when I wrote Phaneron, I remember thinking, this is not depressive black metal. It's not really atmospheric black metal. It's not really black gaze. It's just it's its very own thing. And I thought, well, people are gonna have a hard time trying to find a label for this music.
Yeah.
I think other works of mine are easier to label, and that's also all right. I have no problem with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But precisely that's the issue I have with playlist culture, which it leaves out more integral pieces of work. So I am for that totally. I would like people to listen to my albums as albums and not just a playlist of unrelated ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that won't happen every time, but that's what I would like people to do.
I hope they will come to their senses at one point, because I think there's so much to discover in Nostalgia's way of delivering music, and if I remember correctly, you especially since I talked about the artworks before, maybe the first two records, they were a bit, let's call it, different to the overall artwork theme. So where does this I think you're very passionate about the artwork because it's part of the record, obviously, and it has to accompany the whole idea. But where is this is a very specific painting style, a Nazarene movement, I think it's called, of romanticizing how did I read it again, like the ugly or the sad of that particular period in time.
Yes. Well, the first question was, your first comment about the first two albums, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when I first released Nostalgia as the debut, I really didn't think anybody would listen to it. At that time, I was already releasing albums from other projects, different genres, which I simply like to listen to, and I was just making music for myself. Nobody would listen to it. And I remember when I released that album, some YouTube channels started asking for permission to upload it, and then it got, you could say, mildly popular. I mean, not very much, obviously. It's still very underground.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I ever got any sales on Bandcamp. It was like 8 sales. And I was very excited about that.
Of course.
But that's why the first album is so different, because I didn't even plan to continue with Nostalgia back then. I was just releasing that album for myself. Mm-hmm. But then I did notice that, people liked it, and I thought, well, maybe I should continue with this project. And then I started forging this very particular aesthetic that now accompanies every album. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say it's one single period or one single movement, but most of this art...
a few, yeah.
Yeah, most of this art is Victorian, usually late 19th century, because obviously, first of all, it's copyright free, so I have no problems
True.
with that.
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
So that's the first reason. The one downside of that is that sometimes I've found out after I've released the album that there's other bands who've used it before. And it's okay. It's natural for people to be inspired by the same pieces of art.
That's true.
That's okay. But it is a problem, right? So I do try and find art pieces which I don't think have been used before. But actually, that's an interesting question, because you could say I don't choose the covers for my albums. Rather, what happens is that I know this piece of work, or at least I have a very good idea of the kind of piece that I want.
Yeah.
And then I just write music for that piece. I always have the album art first. That's actually the very first step. The very first step for me to begin working on an album is I need to have the album art and I need to have the title. If I don't have those two things, I cannot begin.
That is so interesting.
And that is also the reason why you might have noticed that all of these albums have different colors.
Yeah.
Because I do want my music to sound a different color, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I know it might be different for everybody, but at least to me, for example, my upcoming album is pink. So I'm trying and focus on the music so that it sounds pink to me. You know, every Black Gaze project needs to have a pink album, right?
Yeah, true.
Otherwise, how can I call myself a Black Gaze solo
That's
artist?
true. I mean, straight away, if you say black and Black Gaze and pink, I think of Death Heaven.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
I was taking long, but that's what I did actually for this for this upcoming album.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I knew was I wanted to be pink. That was the first thing I knew. I wanted to be pink. Second is, okay, I need to think of a piece of art which fits this mood.
Mm-hmm.
And then I need to have a title in which I can focus the lyrics and also the atmosphere of the music. But titles and colors are very useful to me to focus on the music. So you could say it's the opposite, right? I write music for the art piece. I don't choose the art piece for the music.
That's so interesting, because I will just take me as a comparison. Okay, I'm not the greatest musician. I just started. I've always played the guitar, but I never played like in a full-time band, even though I had some gigs back in the days. And we never recorded anything, just to put an exclamation mark. And then a few years back, also I started a side project with a friend of mine, and she said the same thing. You know, she was just like, "What should we call ourselves?" First of all, okay, when you choose a name for a band, that's also super important, right? And then she also had the same approach. We are doing the cover first, and honestly I did not understand it. But now that you mention it, it makes way more sense, like focusing on any form of art. In this particular sense, it was a painting also. And just you stare at it and I would not call it you wait for it to happen, but to some extent it is. Very weirdly, it just overcomes you in a very satisfying way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, also the content of the art piece might help you focus on the themes.
Yeah, exactly.
It happened to me. I think my most thematically loaded album is The Last Path. I actually had been planning that album for a long time. I think it should have been made about 3 albums prior, but I just couldn't find the right way to structure it or to continue in a coherent way.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first thought about it, all I knew was I wanted to make an album which is very cinematical, very dramatic, and I wanted to be about the end of the world, about the end of the human race.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew the colors. I knew that I wanted it to be very wintry.
Yeah. I mean, the cover speaks for itself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I knew all of this. And then I remember looking at that painting and thinking, wow, this is the piece I need as the album art for The Last Path. This is the one. And when I found the piece and when I first looked at it, I knew I was ready to begin working on it. Mm-hmm. Because it just provided me with the inspiration I needed to start working on it. But sometimes I just need that. Sometimes without this visual cues or these words that I need to be inspired, I just cannot focus on the music. I want the music to be thematically coherent.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just music, even if it's just even if it's not, there's not any lyrics on it.
Yeah, but instrumental music speaks in different language, but it's still a language, right?
Exactly. So mm-hmm. I do want even just the music to be coherent with the themes. But it's just very useful to me to follow that approach.
I get it.
In that order.
I really get it. And I mean, for me personally, again, I think that's the reason. I honestly, I'm a flower guy. I like all covers that have some flowers implemented into it.
Oh yeah.
So
me too.
I think honestly, that's the reason why. Not only the reason, but obviously the first thing you see, especially on websites like Bandcamp, you check the cover. Right, because I don't look per genre. I just check metal, new releases, and I just go through the whole list, no matter how long it is. And that's the way I came across Echoes from the Moon River. And the cover spoke to me straight away. That's why I clicked on it. So because it had this particular elements that I am looking for in an art piece, and in that particular sense, in a in music. And so I checked your discography. If I'll guess which record spoke to me in a different but still similar way, Here at the End of All Things, which is obviously pretty obvious in that sense. But I get it.
I do like Flowers. I do like Flowers very much too.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I think Flowers are, even though, and I think that's also the right time to say it, black metal is not always bad and gloomy and evil, especially evil. It's not a flowery cover or lyrics about beautiful things.
Which is kind of, it's kind of ironic that more black metal bands and projects do not include flowers as part of their imagery, because a lot of black metal is based on this nature kind of imagery. You see the mountains, you see the forests, and the mist and the lakes, but you very rarely see flowers.
That is true.
And I wonder why, because in and of themselves they are beautiful, but they're also very symbolic. It might be very obvious at first why they are symbolic, but you might use them in several ways to imply different themes. And I think the possibilities are endless with flowers. I really don't know why they're not used more often as part of black metal imagery. Especially since black metal is a very romantic genre in and of itself as well.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, the scene, the overall global metal scene, and then in that sense, black metal listeners, many guys or whoever are very an elite kind of, they try to be very, or they basically wanted to be very reserved, and no, I'm not changing anything. I stick to the first or second black metal wave. That's the OG stuff, how it should have been done until now. But let's be fair. Okay, without this particular moment in time where black metal occurred and basically dominated the news also, especially in Europe now with the Norway scene and everything, we would probably not have a lot of bands that do basically beautiful lyrics and beautiful music that still are black metal-ish. So to some extent, I'm pretty grateful to these people who try to keep it, as underground and as primal and as raw as possible, because that gives us the possibility to maybe, no, this is way too weird for me. I will go my own way and do my own stuff. I think it also is like a love and hate relationship,
Yeah, I mean, as much as I do appreciate some, you could call it that second wave black metal ideas.
Yeah.
As much as I can find some interest in that, I do think that trying to replicate that type of sound in the current year is just a bit outdated.
It is, yeah.
Because back in the day it was totally transgressive. The reason why black metal sounded so raw was because musicians didn't have the budget, obviously, to be in a big studio. It was all of this do-it-yourself type of philosophy. And it was basically rebelling against the music industry. And that was very much appreciated back at the time. That's why it was so transcendental. But right now, you don't even need a big budget to have a very clear sound.
Yeah, that's true.
My music, I mean, I don't claim to have the best produced music ever, but it's definitely not raw. So I don't even have a big studio or anything like that. I do all at home. And I think you can achieve a very good sound with very few and very basic tools.
That is true.
You don't even need to spend a lot of money on that. So I do think there is no excuse to, have that kind of very raw sound, unless you just want to replicate the sound from the 90s. But then again,
different. Yeah, sure.
I don't even think it's transgressive anymore. I don't think you're actually adding to anything at this point. And it's the same with regards to the genre. If all you're doing is, just black metal the way it was done before,
it's nothing
then
new.
You're not even Then you're not even adding anything on your own. Exactly, you're not trying. And I think art is, every kind of art, but obviously music as well, is way more interesting when you can notice all of these personal details about the people who make this art. And for that, you need to be very honest, and you need to not to be afraid to include whatever makes you. And I think that's especially relevant today, right? When with the rise of AI and all of that, I think we appreciate more humanness.
Yeah, honesty, even though if it's probably not perfection, because again, perfection does not exist in my point of view. There's always room for improvement. But as you said, with AI now, the gap between honestly written music or any form of art and hyper realistically AI art is so small. And where do we as musicians or artists, where will we be in a few years? I mean, that's again another topic which is very difficult, especially for the following years to come, because it gets more and more compressed, so to speak.
Yes, and actually, a lot of people, not me honestly, I don't think we will get to that point very soon. Well, a lot of people are very concerned that AI is sounding like actual musicians. I don't think it's true yet. But I'm more concerned about actual people sounding like AI. That is more concerning to me.
Yeah, that's an interesting fact. Yeah.
I've heard so many especially in black metal and extreme metal in general, I've heard so many artists, they don't even try to imbue any personal elements into what they do. It could literally have been done by an AI. You listen to it and it's very difficult to take anything from it.
That's pretty true, actually.
And that's why I think we just have to be more honest and more open with the music we make, not to be afraid to just do whatever we see right or that actually makes sense to us as the authors.
I think like you said it before, nowadays you don't need to have the biggest studio and everything. I mean, for me it's the same, and I'm gonna say it also here, not for the first time though, but I think in that sense the global effect that happened in 2020, the pandemic, opened up quite a big window for many people in terms of I have a lot of free time now because I basically can't go out. I can't do anything. I'm stuck with my instruments here. I might as well get creative. And you basically, I mean, that's the reason how we came up with the podcast. We didn't do shit. So, and we thought, let's just, I don't know. There's no excuse now. We can't blame. We only can blame ourselves if we are not taking any profit out of this situation, because everything was miserable, but you could at least try and make a difference. And I think many people went with that flow. And I mean, you started in 2020 with Nostalgia, so I'm guessing...
Actually, it was also... It was also begotten on pandemic, that's right.
Yeah. But, okay, let's go back to some other... I have a few more questions for you. Which is also, again, it will come closely to what we were saying just now. But would you actually see now with the record, which is soon coming out, I guess, because we have only gotten one this year, and there's two more to come, right? If you're correct with your plan.
If I do keep my promise, yes, because I did promise at the start of this year that I would release another 3. I think I will make it if my time management is correct. I will. Hopefully I will, yes.
Fingers crossed. I'm sure you will. And even if it's only 2, I mean, I have so much to catch up, so I'm pretty busy with Nostalgia anyway. But could you imagine, as Nostalgia, which is obviously a solo project, we were talking about it earlier, could you imagine playing also live shows with some guest musicians or anything? Is that something that you would consider doable, or even do you want to play this kind of music live, which is also, again, a different approach?
Yeah, okay. There are a few things which, I mean, I'm totally up for it. It's definitely a possibility. But if I had to prioritize it, I think I would rather play with backing tracks, honestly. And it's just that I never actually intended Nostalgia to become even mildly popular, like I said before. I never actually expected anybody to listen to it, but still, I always intended this to be a solo project, and the fact that it is a solo project means that I can do anything I want in the actual engineering process. For example, in some parts, you may have noticed this, in some parts of Echoes from the Moon River, you may hear 5 or 6 different guitar parts at the same time. They're different, and I also have lots of other orchestration. I have maybe a string arrangement, and then I have 3 acoustic guitars, and then I have the flute and the mellotron, and then there's all of this happening at the same time, because I can do that. But playing that live with actual musicians would be very difficult. It would require, first of all, a lot of musicians playing all of that live, or otherwise I would compromise the integrity of my music, which I wouldn't like at all.
That's true. I mean, that makes sense.
If I left out one guitar part, it would feel incomplete to me, so I wouldn't like that to happen. And secondly, if I did play with a backing track, I wouldn't even know what to do, because I've thought about it. I've been thinking, what would I do if I played live? Would I play the guitar and scream/sing? I could do that, but there are some parts in my songs which do not have any vocals, or that do not have any guitars. Maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just kind of an ambient section, or maybe there's the acoustic guitar, or maybe there's just the piano and the bass. And there's so many things happening that I would find it logistically very difficult to do it all by myself as well.
That's true, yeah.
So
keeping basically track out of all, with all this will be very difficult, yeah.
Yes, and even, for example, having guest musicians, that would be okay. It would be a very good opportunity to learn from other musicians and to bind with other musicians. But at the same time, I do think, I do play everything by myself, and having somebody else play it would mean it would not sound the same.
Yeah.
In a way, I did think, and I still do think about my music as being crafted so that people will listen to it in solitude, mindfully, and in silence. I actually do not like concerts myself. I don't attend concerts because they make me nervous. I am autistic, by the way. I am autistic, by the way, which also makes it a bit difficult for me to just stand in front of a crowd and become the center of attention. Yeah, but I mean, I'm totally up to that, but I know that it would be exhausting. I know that it would be logistically difficult, but it's definitely a possibility, because I know for a fact that engaging with the audience is a very rewarding experience. I've done this before. I've played live, but I've played jazz. I've just been. I've been in jazz jams, or I've played with other jazz musicians, and it's a very rewarding experience. So that I know that doing the same live for Nostalgia would also be very rewarding. I'm just having some logistic problems.
I get it. Yeah, now that you.
But if I ever do find a way to do it, for sure, that would be great. I just need to, for example, I don't even have an amp.
You play through the audio, the sound card, I guess.
Exactly. So I just have my interface, and I have amp sims, and I have pedal sims, and I have all of that, but digitally. So I don't even have an amp. I don't even have pedals. So I would even need to, buy actual equipment to play live, which unfortunately I cannot afford at the moment. But well, anyhow, if it ever becomes a bit of an easier task, yes, why not? I'd be delighted to do it.
That would be. I mean, it would be interesting. Obviously, it would take a lot of effort from me as well to come over to Mexico to see you play live. But why not? I have not been to Mexico, so why not? Who knows?
Why not? Yeah, maybe my first step into this process will be to have a sort of digital concert. You've probably seen those. They were very popular. During the pandemic, actually. So I could do that, I could just have kind of a live session playing some tunes on different instruments. I could do it from home. I could do it, and interact with the followers on a live chat or whatnot. That would be pretty cool. as a first step, but I think playing live needs more planning.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
I think if ever this occurs, I think you know exactly how you will. At least at that moment when you will be ready, you will have a plan and you will be ready to do it. But
yeah, you know, the point is that obviously being autistic, I just feel much more comfortable if things are planned.
Yeah,
very
of
carefully.
Of course.
Beforehand.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, I have a friend who is also having these kind of, I will not call it issue, but some, not also restriction is definitely the wrong word. It's
a condition.
It's a personal condition that it doesn't mean that you don't know how to handle stuff, but it makes one uncomfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, I mean, there's no need in doing it. So, and I think especially with the live performances, that makes total sense now. I mean, it does. So, no worries there.
But it will probably happen. I just need some more time and budget as well to plan it.
Of course. But we will wrap it up with, I think, the question that got us a bit thinking last time when we chatted. where do you see Nostalgia as the whole, like in the whole Mexican metal scene? Even though you listen to a huge variety of music, but do you feel that with your contribution with Nostalgia, that this is something that could stand or is standing on its own and is representing not only you as a person, but also stands for ever-growing Mexican metal scene?
Well, to say the truth, I never thought of what I do as being representative of anything. I never actually thought, well, I hope Nostalgia puts the name of Mexico, atop of Latin American metal or anything like that. No, I just have never cared about feeling some sort of national pride or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I never really thought about it that way. Actually, I'm not even sure that most black metal fans in Mexico do listen to my music. Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure my music is made for black metal fans anyway. I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think actually lots of metal fans would probably find my music a bit jarring because it's not, entirely metal. Yeah. So I never really thought about it that way. I tend to be more individualistic in that sense. Like I've said before, I just make the music that I like to listen to. Mm-hmm. And I know that other like-minded, like-hearted, if you want to call it that way, individuals will also find some sort of connection with it. But no, I don't ever think about my music in those terms. I do hope that Mexican and all over the world, but Mexican musicians could find some inspiration in what I do, because it's sometimes thought, mistakenly obviously, that black metal and black gaze and atmospheric black metal is a very European thing, and
that's true.
And there's a lot of elitism regarding that.
Exactly.
But I would like other people to know that no, it's just a genre of music. You can do that anywhere.
Yeah.
And if I can do it, being working class and just having a very limited equipment, maybe everybody can do it. So that is something that I would like Mexican musicians to experience. Mm-hmm. The fact that me being Mexican may reach people on the other side of the world, such as you in Luxembourg, or actually, interestingly, my main audience, according to my statistics, I think it's Finland, which is very interesting.
Okay. Yeah,
it's Finnish people listen to my music a lot. Germans, obviously, in France and Italy, which is my label, right? Flowing Downward. I say my label, but I mean the label I'm signed to.
Yeah.
Right, Flowing Downward, and these hands smell they're Italian. So I think I do hope that Mexican musicians may be inspired by that, by the fact that I'm just one person, not absolutely nothing special about me, just one person who loves making music, who has reached the ears of people all around the world. I do hope that they find inspiration in that, and that they find up the inspiration and the courage to make music, and that in the end it doesn't really matter whether or not people listen to you. I mean, it's about you actually.
Yeah.
You should enjoy what you do, and you should enjoy the process too.
Exactly. It's a personal thing. Always has been.
Exactly. But I think if you do things with honesty and with passion, and also I'm gonna say something a bit let's say something a bit controversial, but I do think that you need to be knowledgeable in what you do. And I do think that's what a lot of musicians might be lacking. If you want to make music and, you know, reach other people's ears, you do need to be a bit more knowledgeable. You need to study music.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not academically, but you need to be open to that. You need to be open to listen to different genres and understand different vocabularies. I listen to a lot of pop music, for example, and I take a lot of inspiration from pop music as well. And a lot of metal musicians might be afraid of that for some reason, and they don't want to get any close to pop music.
Yeah, because it's the usual, I mean, oh no, we don't go there, this is for pussies and all this nonsense. But
no, besides, you know, there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of homophobia, and there's a lot of misogyny in metal as well, and in metal fan bases. And I actually do think that's the reason why a lot of metal projects are so mediocre, because they do not ever go outside the boundaries of the metal musical vocabulary. But I do think they need to do that, okay? That I really do hope that when people listen to my music, they realize that it's the result of just being honest and open, but also open in that regard, right? Mm-hmm. Open to different types of music, but also kind of disciplined. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, without discipline, nothing will ever take proper form as you imagine it. Like
inspiration without discipline is pointless. Even if you're really inspired, if you do not take a few hours every day just to work on that, you won't go anywhere.
That is true.
Because that's a question I get asked a lot. Actually, you asked me, or we mentioned before, the fact that I do release 2 or 3 albums a year, and plenty of people have asked me that before. How you do that? It's not difficult at all. I mean, sometimes I do struggle with the time management and whatnot, but in general, think about it. If you sit down every day for 2 or 3 months, you already have a full-length album. I try to work on about 1 minute of music every day. Mm-hmm. And if I release a 40-minute album, I'll have it done in a month and a half. Even if I rest some of those days. So it's mostly about discipline. Anyways, in summary, yes, but I'm not very much concerned.
Yeah. No, I find it very, very, very. The way you describe, in general, whatever we were saying now in almost over an hour, is so impressive in the way that it's, as you said it several times, it's pure honesty, and it's just your dedication towards yourself and your self-improvement. If it's in music, and I think also in that case in life, because if you're working on music, it will affect your life in any way. So it's just to some extent it's so interesting, because I think you're the first one that we had here that talked so openly about don't be lazy, basically. You know. Because again, I mean, it's so easy to get lazy, you know.
Yeah, so. But it's not about not being lazy, because I know that there are many circumstances why somebody wouldn't want to just do things. Like I've said before, right? If I was feeling mentally unfit to work on my music, then I just wouldn't do it. And I know that for a lot of people, their time or their mood or their mental health is not fit for actually getting up and working on something. So it's not at all about laziness, actually, but it's about trying to find those moments every day just to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
I've heard once, and I agree with that. I don't even remember where I heard it from, but I heard once that the good thing about working as an artist, so to say, is that even leisure time becomes productive. because you can just think. You can just, you can daydream. Just think. You can get inspired. Exactly. You can daydream. Actually, if I have 10 minutes, 10 free minutes to do whatever I want, I usually just daydream. I think about the music I'm yet to record, and
which is amazing.
I'm constantly thinking about that. And for example, I usually take 2 or 3 months to finish an album from start to finish.
Yeah.
And the following month I just rest. But I'm not actually resting. I'm just thinking about what I'm gonna do next. I'm just thinking, okay, what's gonna be the mood? What's gonna be the title? How am I going to begin?
It looks like you're resting, but you're not, to some extent,
But that's okay, That's the way I should be. It should be. I think
that's true. I mean,
so again, it's not about laziness. I know for some people it might not be too easy. Working as an artist is a privilege, and I know not everybody has that privilege.
Yeah,
I've been lucky enough so that I can sort of, I can do this for a living, sort of. I still do need to get money from other sources, but most of the time of my day I can use it on making music.
Yeah, which is very fortunate. I mean,
but not everybody can. And honestly, for example, I know that, and I've been there. I know that working a full-time job leaves one with very, very little energy and very little willingness to do anything else except just lie down. So again, it's not about laziness. It's just about maybe finding a way to manage that time and manage that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because of the autism. Probably because of the autism. But having a routine is a very good idea.
Yeah. The routine makes sense, I think. Obviously, again, I mean, for me personally, working a full-time job, I get it what you meant earlier with the 1 minute that every day you just try to finish not finish, but work on 1 minute of music, or maybe a bit more. And I have the same issue here. I mean, I come home, I usually try to at least practice guitar for at least an hour, which is not always doable, obviously.
Yeah, but that's very good. As long as you do it every day.
Yeah, that's already the discipline that you mentioned, right? That
exactly.
You imply yourself onto this routine-ish kind of thing that, we cannot just stop here, because the moment you will stop, I think... is the most unproductive way in any form of art. But I get it. I mean, you said it earlier, resting, even though we like resting a lot, but still.
But actually resting might be very, very...
It is useful. Also,
insightful, yes. It might be very insightful, very useful, but actually resting, because if you have a few minutes free, and actually you're not resting, but just... getting more stimuli and just doing something all the time, that might not be very good. You're just making your brain more tired.
That's true.
I think everyone at least a few times every day should just do nothing. Should just sit down, do nothing, no cell phone, no nothing, just think. Kind of detox from all of the stimuli. And I think if everybody did that a few times every day, maybe 15 minutes at a time, 3 times every day, that would be very insightful. I think most people will find inspiration and concentration to work on things, but actual rest, not just
proper
constant stimuli. Exactly.
Yeah, because we are exposed on a regular basis, and wherever you see, wherever you hear, whatever you do, you're always exposed to these sources, which makes it very difficult. But I think with all these nice words said, with all the nice talk we had, honestly, I think we are done almost. What else to be said? I mean, thank you so much, Alex, for your time.
Thank you.
And for all the interesting stuff that you mentioned about yourself, your band, your solo project, Nostalgia. I seriously look forward to hearing the record and following the whole story that will evolve, maybe even from this discussion, who knows? Because, as you know, some discussions spark some some ideas wherever, because I have some ideas now. That's why I'm saying
Great.
it. So, but anyway, again, thank you so much, and yeah, I'll post everything for all the listeners out there. Everything which goes with Nostalgia will be posted, will be shared. Make sure to check Nostalgia out. Give it a try, even though it might seem like regular black metal, but it is not. That's for sure. I mean, we talked a lot about it here. So, and yeah, again, Alex, thank you very much, and you people out there, thank you for listening, and yeah, hear you very soon. And cheers, Alex, again.
Thank you very much. See ya.
See ya.